Welcome to Beyond the Unknown. Tonight's story is another reminder that some places should never be explored. So dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin. There's something on my property. My brother sent me the trail cameras after Dad died and left me the orchard. 4 cheap units, motion triggered, the kind hunters use to track deer. "You're out there alone now," he said. "At least you'll know if someone's messing with the trees." I laughed it off, but I mounted them anyway. 1 on the tool shed, 1 on the fence post by the north row, 1 facing the gravel drive, 1 bolted to the old pump house that hasn't pumped anything since 1994. I told myself it was for insurance purposes. 12 acres of apple trees is a lot to lose to vandals or a bad frost, and at least this way I'd have a record. For the first 2 weeks, the cameras caught nothing but raccoons and a fox that liked to cut through the north row around midnight. I'd scroll through the clips over breakfast, half amused, half bored. Then, on the 15th night, the pump house camera caught something else. It came up at 2:47 a.m. The timestamp is burned into my memory, now the way a phone number gets burned in when you dial it enough times. A shape near the old pump house door, upright, narrow through the shoulders, easily 7 feet if it was standing straight, though it wasn't quite standing straight. It leaned very slightly, the way a fence post leans when the ground under it has started to give. I zoomed in until the image dissolved into gray static and blocky pixels. It didn't help. The shape held still. No face I could make out, no clothing, nothing that told me man or animal or trick of moonlight on old wood. It simply stood there, angled toward the tree line at the back of the property, and at 3:33 a.m. it was gone. Not walked away gone. Gone the way a bad splice in old film is gone. They're in one frame, absent in the next. I told myself it was a scarecrow. We'd never had a scarecrow, but I told myself anyway, because the alternative was staying up. I stayed up. Next night, I sat in the kitchen with my laptop and the live feed open, coffee gone cold at my elbow. And at 2:47 a.m. exactly, the shape reappeared by the pump house. Same lean, same stillness, same fixed attention on the tree line, like a man waiting for a bus that had stopped running years ago. I watched it for the better part of an hour. It never turned toward the house. It never so much as shifted its weight. At 3:33, it disappeared between one frame and the next, and I sat there with my heart going too fast for a man who hadn't moved from a kitchen chair. I didn't call my brother. I didn't call anyone. There's a particular kind of shame in admitting you've spent the night watching a scarecrow that isn't a scarecrow, and I wasn't ready to feel it out loud. Instead, I started a notebook. Small thing, spiral bound, the kind I used to use for orchard inventory. I wrote down the date, the time it appeared, the time it left, and anything that had changed. For the first 11 nights, almost nothing had. Same spot, same lean, same held stillness, facing those trees like it was standing sentry over something I couldn't see from any angle the cameras gave me. On the 12th night, it had moved 6 feet closer to the fence line. On the 16th, its head, if that's the word for the blank knob at the top of it, was tipped down and to the side, the posture of someone listening hard for a sound that wouldn't come again. On the 22nd night, both of its arms, which up to that point I hadn't even registered as arms so much as vertical seams in the dark, were raised and extended toward the tree line, fingers, or something like fingers spread wide, reaching for a distance the fence made sure it couldn't cross. I walked out to the tree line myself one gray afternoon, ostensibly to check for storm damage. The wind had knocked down apples all along the eastern edge, but past that the woods were wrong in a way I couldn't name and haven't been able to name since. No birdsong, no squirrel chatter, just my own boots in the wet grass, and a silence so complete it felt curated, like someone had turned a dial down to 0 and left it there. I made it maybe 30 yards past the fence before I turned around, and I didn't examine too closely why. Notebook filled up. Night 29. Closer still, almost at the fence now, both arms down again, but the lean had steepened, like something pulling it forward from the chest. Night 34. Pressed right up against the wire, head through the gap between two strands, fixed on those trees with an attention that had nothing to do with me or my house or my life, and everything to do with whatever lived or didn't in that quiet dark beyond the fence. Asked Delia Prosser, who's owned the farm next door since before I was born, if she'd ever seen anything strange out past my tree line. She's 81 and doesn't scare easy, and she got very still when I asked, the way people get still when they're deciding how much of the truth to give you. Your granddad wouldn't walk that stretch after dark, she said finally. Wouldn't say why, just wouldn't. She wouldn't say anything else either, no matter how I pushed. And there was something in her face while she said it that told me pushing wouldn't get me anywhere I wanted to go. I stopped sleeping properly. I doze in the afternoons and sit up through the small hours with the laptop, watching the shape lean harder and harder into that fence, night after night, like a man trying to walk through a wall by sheer patient insistence. I started to feel, absurdly, sorry for it. Whatever it wanted on the other side of that fence, it wanted badly, and it had wanted it, going by Delia's face, for longer than either of us had been alive. Then came the night it turned around, 41 nights in. It appeared at 2:47 as always, pressed itself to the fence as always, and at 3:15, 18 minutes early, the first deviation from the schedule I'd tracked so carefully, it went rigid. Then it turned, not toward the woods this time, toward the house, toward the camera, toward, as far as I could tell me. It held that position for 4 seconds. Then it was gone, and it did not come back that night, or the next, or the one after that. I should have felt relief. I wrote *relief in the notebook with the question mark, because even as I wrote the word, I knew it was the wrong one. I spent the better part of a week combing back through 41 nights of footage, and it was on the 4th night of that review that I understood what had been bothering me without my being able to name it. In over a month of watching, the shape had never once looked at the house. Not when the porch light tripped on. Not the night I'd gone out, half out of my mind with something between fear and defiance, and stood 20 feet from it and shouted into the dark until my throat hurt. It had not so much as flinched. Whatever held its attention had never, not for one frame, been me, until the last night, until it turned. 4 nights of empty footage followed. I let myself believe, against everything Delia's face had told me, that it was over. Then, on the 5th morning, I opened the pump house camera and found a new shape standing exactly where the old one used to stand, same spot by the door, same rough height. Except this one was not facing the tree line. It was facing the house. I rewound to the start of the clip. 2:47, right on schedule, as if a shift had changed and a replacement had clocked in. It held still until 3:08. Then it took a step toward the house. Another step at 3:09. Another at 3:11. I watched it cross the whole width of the yard in that jerking, frame skipped way the first one used to leave the world, present in one image and 3 feet closer in the next, never once caught in the act of the crossing itself. The camera never showed it reach the porch. I checked the driveway feed. Nothing. The shed feed. Nothing. And I checked the pump house feed one more time, and the frame was full of it. Not a distant lean against wood anymore, but close enough that the lens saw nothing but a dark bowed shape pressed right up against the glass, angled the way you'd angle your head to look past your own reflection into a lit room beyond it, looking into the lens, past the lens, at the window over my kitchen sink, where I was standing right then, notebook in hand, watching a live feed instead of a recording for the first time since this began. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed tonight's story, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one. Get some rest if you can, and I'll see you next time. Same time, same place, beyond the unknown.